William found himself replaying Molly's questions in his mind. "Were you ever truly happy with any of them?" she had asked, her voice a soft tremor in the stillness of their bedroom. "Do you ever wonder what could have been?" He had chuckled then, pulling her close, the scent of her lavender shampoo filling his senses. "Never," he'd murmured into her hair. Not for a single second. But now, alone with the silence, doubt gnawed at him. Had he spoken too soon? Was their seemingly perfect life together a facade, a fragile illusion about to shatter? He glanced at the framed photograph on their nightstand, their smiling faces, bathed in the golden glow of a Tuscan sunset. It had been taken just a year ago, a testament to their love, their happiness, or so he had believed. William and Molly were a striking couple. He, with his Nordic heritage, possessed a rugged handsomeness. His crystal blue eyes, often sparkling with laughter, could turn stormy gray in an instant, betraying a fiery Irish temper inherited from his mother's side. Years of weightlifting had sculpted his physique into one of hard muscle and raw strength. Molly, on the other hand, was all soft curves and easy charm. Her long dark hair framed a heart-shaped face, her hazel eyes often twinkling with mischief. She moved with a natural grace. Her laughter, light and melodic, had a way of disarming even the most cynical soul. She was a magnet, drawing people in with her warmth and effortless charm. They were a study in contrasts, fire and water, yet somehow they complemented each other perfectly. At least that's what William had always believed, until now. Their pasts were as different as their personalities. William, a man of passion and intensity, had loved and lost before. His relationships, though intense and fiery, had always burned out quickly, leaving behind a trail of ashes and what-ifs. Molly, in contrast, had only ever loved once. Her high school sweetheart, a golden boy with a charming smile and eyes that held nothing but adoration for her. Their relationship had been sweet, innocent, and ultimately finite. He had gone off to college, their paths diverging, their love fading with time and distance. When William and Molly met, it was like a clash of thunder and lightning. He, jaded but not broken. She, cautious but hopeful. He had vowed to be her protector, her rock. She had promised to be his anchor, his safe harbor in the storm. Their professional lives were as stable and predictable as their personal lives were passionate and intense. William, a brilliant mechanical engineer, excelled in his field. His work, demanding and time-consuming, provided him with a sense of purpose and fulfillment. Molly, with her sharp mind and meticulous nature, had found her calling as a certified public accountant. She thrived in the world of numbers, her days spent meticulously poring over spreadsheets and financial statements. Lately, however, a distance had crept into their relationship, as palpable as the fog that rolled in from the bay on a cool San Francisco morning. Molly, once vibrant and full of life, seemed withdrawn, her laughter strained, her smiles not reaching her eyes. She worked late, her excuses plausible but frequent. William, his gut twisting with a nameless dread, knew something was amiss. He had seen that look before. The subtle shift in her demeanor, the flicker of guilt in her eyes when she thought he wasn't looking. It happened on a Tuesday, the day shrouded in a gray, oppressive mist that mirrored William's mood. The air was thick with an unspoken tension, a premonition of the storm that was about to break. He had arrived home early, hoping to surprise Molly with her favorite takeout and a quiet evening together. The thought of her smile had kept him going through the long, grueling day at work. Instead, he found her in the living room, her face pale, her voice tight as she spoke on the phone. The atmosphere was charged. Every word she uttered seemed to hang in the air, heavy and foreboding. "I can't," she whispered, her eyes darting nervously towards the door. "Not tonight. He's expecting me." William's blood ran cold. The words echoed in his mind, each syllable a dagger to his heart. He knew with a sickening certainty who he was. The realization hit him like a freight train, leaving him breathless and reeling. Andrew, her coworker, the one she had mentioned in passing, the one whose name had always seemed to linger a little too long in their conversations, the one she laughed a little too readily with, the one whose calls she took with a haste that belied their supposed professional relationship. The signs had been there, but he had chosen to ignore them, to trust her. He didn't make a sound, just stood there, his presence a silent accusation in the suffocating stillness of the room. The weight of his unspoken words pressed down on them both. Molly's head snapped up, her eyes widening in horror as she saw him standing there, his face etched with a pain that mirrored her own. The truth lay bare between them, undeniable and devastating. The phone clattered to the floor, the dial tone a shrill, accusing sound in the sudden silence. It was as if the world had stopped, holding its breath in anticipation of what would come next. "William," she breathed, her voice a mere whisper. You're home early." The words were a fragile bridge, a desperate attempt to reach out to him to explain the inexplicable. The words hung in the air between them, heavy with unspoken truths and the bitter tang of betrayal. It was as if the very atmosphere had thickened, making it hard to breathe, hard to think. William's voice, when he finally spoke, was low, dangerous. It carried the weight of 1,000 unasked questions and 1,000,000 unspoken accusations. "Who were you talking to, Molly?" His words cut through the silence like a knife, sharp and unforgiving. She flinched, her hand flying to her throat, her eyes pleading with him, begging him to let it go, to pretend he hadn't heard. But she knew it was too late for that. It, quote, "S.it, quote, S, not what you think," she stammered, her words a desperate attempt to salvage the unsalvageable. Her voice trembled, betraying her inner turmoil. He laughed then, a harsh, humorless sound that echoed through the room. It was a laugh devoid of joy, filled only with bitterness. "Isn't it?" he spat, his voice thick with disgust. "Don't insult me with lies." His eyes bore into hers, demanding the truth she was so reluctant to give. The truth, when it came, poured out of her in a torrent of tears and half-formed sentences. She could no longer hold back the flood of emotions. She loved him, she sobbed. She truly did. Her words were a desperate plea for understanding, for forgiveness. But she had been feeling lost, neglected. The loneliness had crept in slowly, almost imperceptibly, until it was all-consuming. Andrew made her feel alive, desired. He had filled the void that had grown between her and William. William listened to her confession, his heart shattering with each word. Every sentence was a dagger, each revelation a new wound. The woman he loved, the woman he had built a life with, was choosing another man. The realization hit him like a tidal wave, leaving him drowning in a sea of despair. Section 7, the decision. The following days were a blur of pain and recrimination. Every conversation turned into an argument. Every silence was filled with tension. Molly, racked with guilt and remorse, clung to him, her apologies falling on deaf ears. She tried to explain, to make him understand, but her words seemed to vanish into the void. She swore it was a mistake, a moment of weakness. She recounted the events over and over, hoping that repetition would somehow make it less painful. She promised him the world, begged for his forgiveness. She offered everything she had, everything she could think of, but nothing seemed to reach him. William, however, remained distant, his heart encased in a shield of ice. He listened, but his eyes were vacant, his mind elsewhere. He went through the motions, their life together now a cruel parody of what it once was. The laughter, the joy, the love, they were all gone, replaced by a hollow shell of a relationship. He couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. The image of Molly's betrayal seared into his brain. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw her with someone else, and the pain was unbearable. One night, as he lay awake staring at the ceiling, a single tear escaped, tracing a wet path down his cheek. It was a tear of sorrow, of loss, of a love that had been shattered. In that moment, he knew. He realized that he couldn't go on like this, that something had to change. He couldn't live like this, couldn't pretend that their love, their life together, hadn't been irrevocably broken. He would leave. It was the only way to save himself. Not out of anger, but out of a profound sense of self-preservation. He needed to protect his heart, his sanity. He couldn't bear to watch the woman he loved choose another man day after day. The thought of it was too much to bear, and so, with a heavy heart, he made his decision. Section 8. The departure. He waited until Molly had left for work, the silence of their empty apartment a deafening reminder of their shattered dreams. He packed a single suitcase with essentials, each item a painful reminder of their life together. As he closed the door behind him, he paused, his hand hovering over the knob. He wanted to turn around, to go back inside and try to salvage what was left of their love. But he knew it was futile. The damage had been done. Trust, once broken, is a fragile thing, easily shattered beyond repair. And William, despite his love for Molly, knew he didn't have the strength to pick up the pieces. He walked away, his footsteps echoing in the empty hallway, the sound of his own heartbreak following him like a shadow. Section 9, the letter. Molly returned home that evening, her steps lighter than they had been in weeks. She had ended things with Andrew. It was a difficult decision, but she knew in her heart that it was the right one. She loved William, had never stopped loving him. She found the apartment eerily silent. Her heart pounded in her chest, a sense of unease settling in the pit of her stomach. She called out for William, her voice echoing in the stillness. On the kitchen counter, a single white envelope lay propped against a vase of wilting lilies. Her name, scrawled across the front in William's familiar handwriting, sent a shiver down her spine. With trembling hands, she picked up the letter, her heart sinking as she recognized his handwriting. Each word was like a shard of glass piercing her soul, reminding her of the depth of her betrayal. Section 10. Picking up the pieces. Molly, the letter began, his words etched in pain and resignation. By the time you read this, I will be gone. He wrote of his hurt, his inability to move forward knowing that she had chosen another. He spoke of his love for her, a love that, despite everything, burned brightly. But he couldn't be with her, not anymore. The trust was gone, shattered beyond repair. He wished her happiness, truly he did. But it would be a happiness that no longer included him. He was moving on, starting over, leaving behind the wreckage of their shattered dreams. The letter ended with a finality that stole her breath. No goodbyes, no recriminations, just a quiet acceptance of the irreversible consequences of her actions. He was gone. And she, left standing amidst the ruins of their love, finally understood the true meaning of heartbreak.